What if everything we think we know about Star Wars is wrong? What if the Sith aren't the ultimate evil we've been led to believe, but merely a symptom of a much deeper problem that's been corrupting the galaxy for thousands of years? I'm about to show you evidence that George Lucas has been hiding in plain sight across every single movie, book, and show. A truth so disturbing that it changes everything we understand about the Force, the Jedi, and the very nature of good and evil in the Star Wars universe. The real enemy isn't wearing a black cape or wielding red lightsabers. It's something far more insidious, something that existed long before the first Sith drew breath and will continue to exist long after the last one falls. And once you see it, you'll never watch Star Wars the same way again. The pattern. George Lucas embedded. Let's start with something that should have made us all suspicious from the very beginning. In over 40 years of Star Wars content, how many times have the Sith actually been completely eliminated? The ancient Jedi thought they wiped out the Sith multiple times throughout galactic history. Darth Bane was supposedly the last survivor who created the Rule of Two. Then Obi-Wan and Yoda believed they'd ended the Sith when Vader killed the Emperor. Luke thought he'd finished the job, but they keep coming back. This isn't just because Disney needs villains for new movies. Lucas was showing us from the very beginning that destroying the Sith never actually solves anything. They're not the disease, they're just the most visible symptom. Look at what happens every single time the Sith are defeated. The same problems that allowed them to rise in the first place remain completely untouched. Political corruption, social inequality, institutional failure, fear, and hatred. None of that goes away when you kill a guy in a black robe. Lucas structured the entire saga to show us this pattern. The prequel trilogy shows us how the Sith rise. The original trilogy shows us how they fall. The sequel trilogy shows us how they rise again. It's an endless cycle, and the Sith are just the galaxy's way of expressing its deeper sickness. When Palpatine says, "I am all the Sith" in Rise of Skywalker, he's not just being dramatic. He's revealing the truth. The Sith aren't individuals, they're manifestations of something eternal and unchanging about the galaxy itself. The Force itself is broken. Here's where things get really disturbing. What if the problem isn't that people choose the dark side, but that the Force itself is fundamentally corrupted and has been for millennia? Think about what we know about the Force's origin. On Mortis, we see the father struggling to maintain balance between his children, the light side daughter and the dark side son. But notice something crucial. The father is exhausted, ancient, and failing. The father tells Anakin that he's been holding this balance for so long, he can't remember how it started, but he's dying, and the balance is falling apart. This isn't a sustainable system. It's a cosmic bandage that's been slowly failing for eons. Then we have the wellspring of life, supposedly where midichlorians and the Force itself originated. But look at what we actually see there. A planet that looks dead from space, floating islands held up by raw Force energy, and an ecosystem that seems completely artificial and unstable. Here's the really disturbing part. Everywhere the Force is strongest, we find evidence of conflict. Korriban, Yavin 4, Dagobah, Mortis, Ahch-To, these aren't peaceful places. They're battlegrounds where the Force has been at war with itself for thousands of years. And what does the galaxy do with Force-sensitive beings? We separate them from their families, indoctrinate them into rigid ideologies, and turn them into weapons for competing visions of how the Force should be used. The Jedi do it. The Sith do it. Every Force-using organization does it. We're not dealing with people choosing between good and evil. We're dealing with a cosmic force that's been broken for so long that it can only express itself through conflict and extremism. The Jedi's fatal misunderstanding. The Jedi aren't villains, but they're catastrophically wrong about almost everything, and their mistakes create the very problems they're trying to solve. Let's start with their fundamental approach to the Force. The Jedi teach that attachment leads to suffering, so they eliminate attachment. But what they're really doing is creating emotionally stunted individuals who can't form healthy relationships or understand normal human experiences. When Anakin falls to the dark side, it's not because attachment is evil, it's because he was never taught how to process attachment in a healthy way. The Jedi created the very instability they feared by denying basic psychological needs. But the bigger problem is how the Jedi approach the dark side itself. They treat it as something external that must be rejected and destroyed, never asking why it exists or what purpose it might serve. For thousands of years, the Jedi have been trying to eliminate the dark side through Force, and it never works. Every time they think they've succeeded, the dark side comes back stronger than before. This isn't because they're not trying hard enough, it's because their fundamental approach is wrong. Luke succeeds where the Jedi Order failed, because he doesn't try to destroy the dark side. He acknowledges it, confronts it, and ultimately integrates it. When he faces the Emperor, he doesn't defeat the dark side, he chooses compassion over fear, while fully aware of his own capacity for darkness. But even Luke eventually falls into the same trap. In the sequel trilogy, when he senses darkness in Ben Solo, his first instinct is to eliminate the threat rather than understand and heal it. The cycle begins again because even Luke couldn't break free from the Jedi's fundamental misunderstanding, the Republic's systemic corruption. Here's the part that makes this truly terrifying. The political and social structures of the galaxy are designed to create Sith Lords. Look at the galactic government in the prequels. It's a system where nothing gets done. Corruption is endemic. Powerful corporate interests control entire sectors of space, and suffering on the Outer Rim is completely ignored by the core worlds. Anakin Skywalker grows up as a slave in a system that legally tolerates slavery. His mother dies because the Republic doesn't care enough about Outer Rim worlds to maintain basic law and order. The Jedi know about this and do nothing meaningful to change it. When Padme tries to address the Trade Federation's illegal blockade through legal channels, she's told it will take years to resolve, while people starve. The system is designed to benefit those who already have power while the powerless suffer. This isn't just backdrop, this is the environment that creates Darth Vader. A system so broken and unjust that a young man with unlimited power naturally concludes that democracy doesn't work, and that order must be imposed through force. When Anakin talks about bringing peace to the galaxy, he's not talking about conquest for its own sake. He's talking about creating a system where decisions get made, where the strong protect the weak, and where justice isn't delayed by bureaucratic incompetence. The terrifying thing is that the Empire actually works better than the Republic in many ways. Yes, it's oppressive, but it's also efficient, decisive, and capable of maintaining order across the galaxy. For many beings, Imperial rule is an improvement over Republic chaos. This is why the Sith keep winning. They're offering solutions to real problems that the Jedi and the Republic refuse to address. As long as those underlying problems exist, there will always be someone willing to embrace the dark side to solve them. The endless cycle revealed. Now we can see the full picture of what George Lucas has been showing us. The Sith aren't aberrations, they're an inevitable product of the galaxy's deeper dysfunction. Every few generations, the same pattern repeats. The government becomes corrupt and ineffective. The Jedi become rigid and disconnected from the people they serve. Social inequality grows until it becomes unbearable. And then, someone with force sensitivity and strong convictions decides to fix everything through power and control. Exar Kun, Revan, Darth Bane, Darth Plagueis, Palpatine, Kylo Ren, they're all responding to the same fundamental problems in the same predictable way. The details change, but the underlying pattern is identical. And what happens every time a Sith Lord is defeated? The same broken systems that created them remain in place. The same social problems persist. The same institutional failures continue. So eventually someone new picks up a red lightsaber and the cycle begins again. The sequel trilogy isn't just a rehash of the original trilogy. It's Lucas and Disney showing us that defeating individual Sith Lords accomplishes nothing if you don't address the root causes that create them. Ben Solo doesn't become Kylo Ren because he's seduced by some external evil. He becomes Kylo Ren because he grows up in a galaxy where the same problems that created Darth Vader still exist, and everyone around him, including Luke Skywalker, still doesn't understand how to break the cycle. The real enemy revealed. So what is the real enemy that's been hiding in plain sight this entire time? It's the galaxy's refusal to acknowledge and integrate its own shadow. The real enemy is the collective unconscious of galactic civilization, all the fear, hatred, greed, and violence that every society generates but refuses to acknowledge or deal with constructively. The Sith don't create these problems. They're created by normal people making normal choices within broken systems. Corporate greed, political corruption, social inequality, institutional indifference, these aren't dark side phenomena. They're just ordinary evil that accumulates over time. Every time someone chooses profit over compassion, every time a politician prioritizes power over service, every time an institution values its own survival over its stated mission, the dark side grows stronger. The Force isn't separate from galactic civilization, it's connected to every living thing in the galaxy. When billions of beings live in systems that create suffering, fear, and hatred, the Force itself becomes imbalanced and starts producing individuals capable of expressing that collective darkness. This is why Force-sensitive beings are so prone to extremism. They're not just individuals with special powers, they're psychic receivers picking up the emotional and spiritual state of the entire galaxy. When the galaxy is sick, Force users become sick too. The Jedi try to solve this by creating perfectly controlled individuals who feel nothing. The Sith embrace it and try to channel all that darkness into personal power. But neither approach addresses the source of the problem. The solution Lucas has been hinting at. There is hope, and George Lucas has been showing us the solution throughout the entire saga. But it's not what most fans think. Luke's success in the original trilogy comes from his willingness to acknowledge darkness without being consumed by it. He doesn't defeat the Emperor by being more powerful. He defeats him by refusing to perpetuate the cycle of violence and hatred. When Luke throws away his lightsaber and says, "I am a Jedi like my father before me," he's not just refusing to kill the Emperor. He's refusing to solve problems through force and dominance, even when he has the power to do so. This creates space for Anakin to remember who he was before the system broke him. The Emperor dies not because he's overpowered, but because someone chooses love over fear in the presence of ultimate evil. We see hints of this solution in newer content too. In The Mandalorian, we see beings from different cultures and backgrounds working together without trying to convert each other to a single ideology. Ahsoka Tano represents another path, someone who was trained as a Jedi but chose to forge her own relationship with the Force, free from institutional dogma and rigid thinking. Even in Rise of Skywalker, Rey's victory comes not from destroying Palpatine with superior power, but from choosing to sacrifice herself rather than rule through fear. She breaks the cycle by refusing to perpetuate it. The galaxy must heal itself. The Sith will never be permanently defeated because they're not the real problem. They're just the galaxy's way of expressing its collective trauma and dysfunction. The real work isn't destroying dark side users, it's building social, political, and spiritual systems that don't create them in the first place. It's addressing inequality, corruption, and institutional failure before they metastasize into galactic conflict. George Lucas has been trying to tell us that the Force isn't about superhuman individuals with laser swords. It's about the spiritual health of an entire galaxy, and that health depends on how ordinary beings treat each other in their daily lives. Until the galaxy learns to acknowledge its shadow, integrate its darkness, and build systems based on compassion rather than fear, there will always be another Sith Lord waiting to rise. The enemy was never Darth Vader or Emperor Palpatine. It was the broken civilization that created them. But if the Sith weren't the real enemy, then how did Anakin fall anyway? That story is so much darker and more tragic than most people realize. Let's talk about it next. Click on the video on your screen now.